down on my knees again, surrendering all, surrendering all. Find me here, yeah, as you draw me near, desperate for you, desperate for you. I surrender. Drench my soul as mercy and grace unfold. I hunger and thirst. I hunger and thirst. With arms stretched wide, I know you hear my cry. Speak to me now. Speak to me now. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. Like a rushing wind, Yahshua, breathe within. Yah, have your way, Yah, have your way in me. Like a mighty storm, stir within my soul. Yah, have your way, Yah, have your way in me. Like a rushing wind, Yahshua, breathe within. Yah, have your way, Yah, have your way in me. Like a mighty storm, stir within my soul. Yah, have your way, Yah, have your way in me. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you. I surrender. I surrender. I want to know you more. I want to know you more. Hallelujah.
Well, I guess I got a lot to live up to now, don't I? Who had a good week? Anybody have a good week? Anybody have a boring week? Boring week? All right. Who's in a good mood today? Who's not in a good mood today? Okay, well, if you're not in a good mood, I'm going to try to get you in a good mood. I'm going to try to make this message a little bit fun. And given that there's not that many people that showed up, I appreciate those who did. So, we'll start off with a little joke. Now, here's the thing with jokes. If you know the punchline, you got to keep shut. So, do me that favor. So, here goes a joke. One day, an angel appeared to Adam and said, "Adam, I've got great news. Yahweh is going to create something wonderful for you." Adam replied, "Ooh, what is it?" The angel said, "It's not an it, it's a she. He's going to create something called a woman. This woman will be made to be a lot like you physically, except for she'll be a lot more beautiful. When you're tired, she'll give you a massage. When you're hungry, she'll feed you. She will never argue with you or complain. She won't nag you or talk back to you either. For every command you give her, she'll simply reply, 'Yes, Master.'" Adam had a sparkle in his eye and said with excitement, "Wow, that sounds amazing. You know, I could really use something like that." Adam looks at the angel and says, "What's it going to cost me?" The angel looks at Adam and says, "Well, Adam, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg." So Adam thought about it for a while and replies, "What can I get for just a rib?" I'm going to assume that there's not that many people in this room. That's why it wasn't that loud of a laugh. But I'm going to mark this one was a 5 out of 10 joke right here. How about this one? This one's, what do you call a Mexican deacon with a rubber toe? Brother Roberto. All right. There he is. I love you. So today's topic is going to be geared towards the younger people. And that's because it's going to be on the topic of relationships that move towards marriage. Some of us call it dating. Some of us call it courting. Some of us don't believe in dating. You can make the claim that you can just get to know somebody as friends. But you don't just go from being friends to getting married. So for the sake of argument, let's just include that as part of a relationship that moves towards marriage. Now, personally, I refer to it as dating. So that's the term I'll be using. And the reason I feel like it's important to talk about dating today is because, one, we really don't talk about it much, right? What we should look for in a partner. How do we progress from dating to marriage? What are the struggles that young couples face? So if we don't talk about it in the context of our faith, then our expectations are going to be shaped by what we see on TV, what we hear in the music, what we read in the magazines, and that's not always the prettiest thing. So I figured rather than have an adult speak on this, I figured maybe the youth can relate to it more if someone around their age group talked about it. So how many of you are actually around the ages 15 to, let's say, 30? Yeah, okay, Brother Roberto. All right, keep your hands up. 50. Okay, so essentially it's the left side is pretty much all youth. The middle side is, there's nobody in the middle really. And there you go. And then the left side tends to be like the more experienced people. So, given that half the crowd today is youth, I guess it would be an appropriate message to give. Now, a couple statistics to throw at you guys. 80% of Americans, who's American? Like, You were born in America. Riley, you weren't born in America? All right. Okay, 80% of Americans will get married. Okay? 80% of Americans will get married. Now, that number used to be 91%, but living together and having kids out of wedlock is more accepted now. But nonetheless, the point is that most of you will get married at one point or another. Now, the average length of a marriage that ends in divorce is 8 years. So, assuming you get married at 30, let's just take that number. By the age of, assuming you get married at 22, by the age of 30, you could be divorced, have a kid, be paying child support, and alimony. Now, that's not ideal if you ask me. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Now, marriage is a big investment, right? You have to be wise in choosing your partner, because if you don't, some people can back me up, it can be really expensive. You see, it's like buying a stock in a company. You buy the right one at the right time, you're set for life. But if you buy the wrong one at whatever time, you can lose everything. Now, the Bible doesn't say anything specifically on dating because, well, the concept of dating didn't exist back then, right? See, back then, the process of meeting your spouse had very little to do with how compatible you were with that person and everything to do with family lineage, right? Economic status. We read, find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage. Prearranged marriage. Has anybody had a prearranged marriage here? Oh my goodness, Robert. I guess we could go that route. Would anybody actually be okay with a prearranged marriage, like your dad or your mom actually sets you up with somebody? Anybody? All right, well, I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't. But that's just me. So anyways, even though the Bible doesn't speak on dating specifically, it does speak a lot about relationships, how to treat others, and marriage. So, another thing the Bible makes very clear, regardless of what the topic is, and we'll apply it to dating, 1 Corinthians 10:31, no matter what it is we're doing, it can be used as a means to glorify Him. So my first question for you is this. While going on to marry someone who doesn't share the same moral principles as you may not be smart, here's a question. Does that mean you should not date non-believers? All right, if you believe you shouldn't date a non-believer, raise your hand. Don't be shy. All right. If you believe it's okay to date a non-believer, raise your hand. Okay. Now would probably be a good time to tell you a little bit about my relationship. So, most of you know my girlfriend, Alejandra, or you know her by Alex or Allie or something around those lines. We met freshman year of high school, and when we first started dating, she wasn't in the faith. Like, let me tell you, she wasn't in the faith. I don't make it seem bad, but she wasn't like, you get the point. I mean, she wasn't like an atheist, right? But she wasn't in the faith. Now, when we first started dating, I didn't think we'd get this far, to be honest. As a matter of fact, I remember telling myself, like, why should I even explain to her why I don't keep Christmas? We're not even going to get that far. So I'm like, I don't need to bring that up to her. Yeah, don't bring it up now. It might cost me a month or two with her. And so 7 years later, here we are, and the moral of the story is that, you know that verse in 2 Corinthians 2:14 where it says, don't mix with unbelievers? I feel like that verse can be sometimes misunderstood. You see, 2 Corinthians 2:14, it talks about two extreme cases. It talks about righteousness and wickedness, lightness and darkness. He says those should not mix. And if you ask me, it's common sense that you probably shouldn't get with somebody that is the complete opposite of you. But let's say you come home to mom and you say, "Hey, Mom, I found someone I might like." Now, they don't use the names, but they're also not hard-headed devil worshippers. Mama, can I get to know him? Will it work? It could. It could. Now, I'll say this. If you're suppressing your beliefs in order to impress someone, that's another thing, right? In most cases, that would mean that you don't really even have a firm grip on what you believe. So, Art and I can testify on this, that you can date someone who's a non-believer, and it can work out. You see, Amos 3:3 asks a rhetorical question. It says, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" You see, you don't date someone in hopes of converting them. That's not your job. Your job is to stand firm on your principles. And just maybe, like in the case of Art and I, Yahweh will use you to reveal himself to them. Now, most of us here would agree that the ultimate goal of dating should be to find your life partner. Now, this doesn't mean that the first person you date, you have to marry. Now, it's not a sin to have dated multiple people. Although some of us may make it seem like it's a bad thing if you've dated multiple people. Now, I will say that for some of us, we'll be lucky if we can get just one person to date us, right? But, see, the way I look at it is this. And hopefully this isn't a bad analogy. Art will tell me later if it is. You don't buy the first house you look at unless it's a good deal and you know you aren't finding a better one. Am I right? Yes, Andrew, you're right. All right, thank you. All right, so assuming your motive is to find someone to be your life partner, assuming your motive is that, then there's certain questions you need answers to before you can deem them, quote unquote, the one. Now, granted, you won't fully know someone until you live with them. There's still a lot you can find out about them, right? You need to see if you're compatible with them. See, that's why I say if you're just starting to date someone, don't take them to the movies, don't take them to a concert. You can't talk in those settings. That's why Art and Lena have never actually had a real conversation. He always takes her to movies. I remember our first date. We were 15. We had no jobs. So I took her to the only place a young man like me could afford. The Golden Arches. And being the gentleman that I am, I allowed her to pick anything from the menu. The dollar menu, that is, because, like I said, I didn't have a job. No, I'm just kidding. I let her pick anything from the menu. As a matter of fact, I actually thought, and at the time, it seemed pretty impressive, I actually tried impressing her by buying the 20-piece chicken nuggets. It wasn't until a couple years later I realized how unimpressive that was. But for all you young people watching, if you're going to take a girl out to eat, ask your mom for a couple extra dollars. Take her out to at least Panda Express. I mean, there you at least get a fortune cookie. I mean, imagine opening that fortune cookie together. That'd be pretty funny. Like, be careful who you end up with. That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, at 15, you can only do so much. So I address this to the women. Things you should know about him before he gets on one knee? How is he when he gets mad? See? Man, people are throwing me under the bus here. How is he when he gets mad? If you've never seen him mad, you best get him mad, right? Because you need to know what he's like when he's mad. And if you don't know what gets him mad, then you definitely don't know him enough yet. See, there's important questions you've got to ask each other before you're reciting your vows. And some of them aren't really questions you'd ask just a friend. How is your relationship with soap and water? Do you shower 2 times a day? Do you shower 2 times a week? Right? I need to know. How many kids do you want to have? What do you want to name those kids? If you can't have kids, will you be okay with adopting? These are questions you got to ask. Would you be okay with owning a pet cow? You think it's crazy, but some people would ask. Do you want to live in the city? Do you want to live in a farm? Well, I got asthma, so we're going to cut the farm out. See, I mean, my point is, you gotta ask these questions to see if they're if you have things in common with them, right? And like I said, these probably aren't questions you're asking somebody who's just your friend. They probably shouldn't be questions you ask on the first date, not unless you don't want there to be a second one. But like I said, they're definitely questions you should have answers to before you say, I do. And I'm telling you this because, so many people end up marrying someone that they don't really know. And it sounds crazy, but so does the divorce rate. You know what I'm saying? I can't pick that up. The soup, nope. Gonna leave it there. Growing up, the most important woman in a man's life is his mother. So for you women, pay close attention to how he treats his mom, because it won't be far from how he'll treat you as a wife. And ask yourselves, do you want your sons to be like him? For men, do you want your daughters to be like her? And you got to think realistically. You got to think ahead. You got to put kids into the equation. See, men, you want the kind of woman that's going to make you a better man. And women, you want the kind of man that's going to respect you. So with that, I bring up the topic of what to look for in a partner. There's so many giggles over here, it's insane. See, everybody has a list of must-haves, must-not-haves, would be nice to have. You see, a must-have would be something like sharing the same convictions, right? A would be nice to have would be a six-pack. Zach Hawley biceps. That would be a nice to have. Some must-not-haves. Some must-not-haves. A weird laugh. See, that's a must-not-have. You can find the most beautiful, smart girl, but every time she laughs, it makes you cringe because it's so annoying. And you can't have that because you'll go the rest of your life without telling a joke, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a long life. So, here's the top 5 things people look for in a partner, and this is what studies show. Number 1, I think we'd probably all agree on this, is a steady job.
Hey, that's good.
A steady job. I mean, who agrees? Who wants a partner with a steady job? There we go. I mean, no, you guys don't? I'll take the steady job. Number 2, similar ideas about having and raising children. All right, that makes sense. Number 3, same moral and religious beliefs. All right. Number 4, at least as much education. Okay. Number 5, same racial or ethnic background. Well, personally, I'm a little iffy on the last 2. Well, the first 3 are pretty solid, I'd say. Now, if someone were to ask me, Angel, what about physical looks? Do physical looks matter? Are physical looks important? You best believe it is. I mean, you're going to need to look at them for a long time, so I hope you find them attractive. We hear a lot that it's not about what's in the outside. It's about what's in the inside. And while there is some truth to that, let's not act like looks aren't anything now. I mean, it's not everything, but to act like it's not anything is pretty foolish. Now, does intellect matter? Going back to point number 4, finding someone with at least as much education. Does intellect matter? Well, let's just say, if you're into reading books with footnotes, but he only understands them if they have pictures, there might be a problem, women. So I'd say yeah, intellect matters. I believe that you need to find someone you find. Yeah, that makes sense. Physically and intellectually attracted. That wasn't very intellectual of me. But it's important. Now I'm going to steer this towards family priorities and responsibilities. Family priorities and responsibilities. Okay, so these days, people have different views on how marriages should work, right? How responsibilities are split between both partners. Some believe women should stay at home. Others encourage their wives to find a job. Now, nowhere in the Bible are women forbidden from working outside the house. But it does say her priorities should be her husband and children. Now, if you ask me at the end of the day, from what I understand in Scripture and my personal convictions, it's the man's responsibility to provide for his wife, for his children, to take responsibility of the house, show leadership, make decisions. Now, if you find yourself a woman who works, takes care of you, and the children, then boy, you got yourself a good wife. You got to keep her. Now, with that said, I will throw in my 2 cents here. Don't get offended. As a woman in today's world, this might get me in trouble. No, it won't. In today's world, like I said, this is my opinion. You have to put yourself in a position to be successful without that person if things don't go well. You have to. And there's nothing wrong with depending on your husband. You should be able to do that. But at the same time, don't think that you never have to go to school again or find a job or, like I said, just not be in a position to be able to help yourself if things don't go well. Because like I said, in today's world, that's the harsh reality of it. So for women, that would be, like I said, my advice. Find yourself a man that will take care of you, but at the same time, put yourself in a position to be successful without him. Now, if you ask the average mom or dad what's most important to them, they'll probably say their kids. Now, there's nothing wrong with giving that answer, but let me pose another question. Should your spouse go before your children, or do your children go before your spouse? So I'm going to read to you something that a woman wrote about her experience growing up. And it spoke to me. So she said, "When I was little, I used to ask my mom who she loved the most, me or Dad. She always said, 'Dad.' I asked him the same question, and he always answered, Mom. Now, of course, I knew they loved me, but I was always a little disappointed that they didn't say they loved me the most. A few years later, I asked them again, and the answer they gave showed me on top. At last, they said they loved me the most. The funny thing is, it didn't feel so good after all. It wasn't the feeling I was expecting. As a matter of fact, I liked it better when they said they loved each other the most. A few years later, they divorced. My mom said, we needed to keep loving each other the most. And had they, I might still have a mom and dad together. You see, from my experience as a child, my interpretation from Scripture, marriages work best when you put your spouse before your children. You see, Yahweh, your spouse, and then your kids. And I can tell you as a kid growing up that there's nothing that gets to you more than constantly seeing your parents fight. Nothing gets you more than that. Nothing affects you more than constantly seeing your parents argue all the time. I had a couple friends of mine whose parents got divorced right after he left to college because, well, the only thing that was keeping their marriage together was their children. So once they left, they had nothing else to stay together for. And it's sad that it had to get to that point. And if we're being honest, there are married couples, even in the faith, that are just plain miserable. Right? And for this side of the room, or those of you online who haven't been married yet, we don't want that. See, I believe that those of you who are married, who come to church service, whether you believe it or not, your marriage actually has an effect on younger people who are watching. You see, I think I can speak for all of us younger people. See, we look to you guys or to your marriages as an example of what we would want our marriage to be like, or maybe what we don't want our marriage to be like. Now, we'll talk a little bit about struggles in a relationship, somewhat. So there's a saying that falling in love is easy, staying in love is hard. I'd probably argue that truly falling in love is rare. So you might be in a relationship where you get to a point, where maybe you're too comfortable. Neither of you try anymore. Maybe there's insecurity issues, right? Someone always needs to know who you're texting. Someone wants to know why you're filing your taxes as single when you have a girlfriend. And these insecurities, they can lead to a breaking point in your relationship. And I think sometimes we don't realize how selfish we can be in relationships. Because, and I'm talking in terms of dating here, you can be in a relationship for a long time, and the way it is, like the longer you're with somebody, the harder it is to break up with them, because it's going to hurt more. And it's not necessarily that you don't want to hurt the other person, you just don't want to hurt yourself. And so, you question whether this is the relationship you want to be in or not, but then you tell yourself, well, maybe I won't find somebody who loves me like they do. And for me, that's kind of selfish, because if you're with somebody that you really don't want to be with, not only are you hurting yourself, you're not being fair to them. And I bring this up because it happens a lot in young relationships where it's not that you get tired of each other, or maybe you guys just weren't compatible enough, and so you're lingering in this relationship longer than it should. And really that relationship's going to end because there was never any firm foundation. Another thing besides, insecurities and stuff like that. Another thing that breaks relationships is probably the biggest one, is letting the small things turn into a big deal. You see, the reason it's so hard for you to stay happy, whether it's in your personal life or in your relationships, is because it's so easy for you to get offended. See, how many of us before we say anything, how many of us ask ourselves, how can I possibly phrase this so that I don't offend somebody? I know as speakers we have to do that a lot. Like edit our message 10 times, be like, oh, somebody's gonna get offended if I say this. But you think like somebody actually goes into a marriage like saying, oh, I want to be a bad husband, or oh, I want to be a bad father. I don't think that's the case, but see, there's this saying that before marriage, opposites attract. After marriage, opposites attack. It tends to be true. Because, the thing you loved about her when you were dating is driving you crazy now that you have to wake up next to her every morning. See, now every little thing she does bothers you. She sneezes too loud. She drives too slow. She bought the wrong flavored Go-Gurts. All these unmet expectations. See, because the thing is that this is true, nobody can hurt you like someone you've given your heart to. Nobody can offend you as much as someone you value so much. You'll go like, well, I apologized first last time. I'm not going to do it again. And so you do something that offends her, and she does something that offends you. But instead of talking about it and dropping it, you let these offenses build up, and build up, until finally, figuratively speaking, you've created a fence that divides both of you. Because you see, Yahweh takes two, and he makes one. But the devil takes one, and he makes two. And we allow him to do that. You see, you can't always control what's handed to you, but you can control what you do with it. How quickly can you get over the fact that she made you a peanut butter sandwich when you asked for turkey? You see, how dare she not meet my expectations? And so all these things that are just small nonsense turn into a big deal. And I ask myself, like, well, isn't there somebody who had the right to be offended, who had the right to hold it against us, and yet he dropped it? You see, a great relationship isn't great because they never argue. A great relationship is great because both people care enough about the other person to let it go. See, forgiveness, it's a saying, forgiveness is releasing a prisoner free and realizing that prisoner was you. Now, when I speak about offenses, like I said, I'm talking about these small things that we make into a big deal. I'm not talking about things like cheating. That's a big thing. That's a big deal. And that's a separate issue. But did you know that out of the top reasons that people get divorced, too much arguing and lack of communication rank higher than infidelity? It's making those small things a big deal, not being able to let go and forgive. Now, I've had coworkers who've been married to their spouses for 40 plus years. A couple years ago, I was working at H&R Block. I was 20, and the second youngest person there was 50. So I had a lot of talks with people there. And so I asked one of the guys there, he was married to his wife for 46 years. I asked him, Ben, what's the key to sustaining a long marriage? He looks at me and says, son, just gotta learn to listen to her. I said, you just gotta learn to listen to her. Okay. A couple years later, I started working at Whole Foods. And there's this woman who worked in the bakery department. Her name was Carol. She was married to her husband for 41, 42 years, I think. Probably 43 now, hopefully. I asked Carol at the time, I said, Carol, what's the key to sustaining such a long relationship? She says, just gotta learn to ignore them. I'm like, what? I'm like, I've come to think that forgiveness is the key to a long relationship, but here I got someone telling me you gotta listen to them. No, you gotta ignore them. So, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure where we're getting with this. So I'll open this up to maybe 2 or 3 people, if you don't mind sharing, to us younger people. I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. We'll get the mic. What did you wish, 2-part question, what did you wish you knew before getting married? And 2, what's a piece of advice you would give to someone on how to sustain a long marriage? Who wants to go first? Anybody? Takers? All right, well, I'm going to give you my piece of advice then. Oh, wait, my mom's back there. Oh, Robert's back. There we go. Now I got people trying to participate.
All right. Is this? All right. Can you repeat the question?
All right, first part of the question. What did you wish you knew before getting married?
As far as for me, there's really Yahweh has actually blessed me. The one thing that I wish that I knew is how to have, from what I know now, is how to have a better relationship with my children. But I think that Yahweh has taught me, as I shared in my message last week, is that Yahweh has taught me that my relationship with Him, so my relationship with my children is a shadow of my relationship with Him. And that's something that I've learned now, which I didn't know before Kate and I were married. And then the second part as to what I can share with the younger people, especially those that are in a relationship or that are contemplating the idea of pursuing or making the relationship that they have into a marriage. My advice is, and I share this advice with a lot of young couples, is to have good communication with your spouse. And that is to, one thing that I learned when Katie and I were first dating, we used to walk all the time, and we walked everywhere, and we would talk about everything, and we talked about just like you said earlier. Katie and I did watch a lot of movies, and we did go to the movie theater a lot, but we also walked a lot, and we would share each other's goals, and we would ask each other questions on a variety of things. But we always had that communication. And so my advice is to always have that, always be able to communicate. And there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to communicate because you're upset, you're mad. And so take the time to go by yourself and then come back and then continue to communicate. And for me, that has been a huge thing. You know, when Katie and I first when I first saw Katie, the minute I saw her, the minute that I actually, because my story with Katie is very interesting, but the minute that I actually saw her and I actually acknowledged her, the very first time, because I had met her before, but I didn't, you know, but that day I knew that I was going to marry her.
Wow.
And I gave her a ride home, and the day that I gave her a ride home, her mom asked her, "Who is that guy?" And she said, "Well, that's Robert Castillo, the guy that I'm going to marry." So, so it's an interesting story. I can tell you about it sometime. But anyway, the but my biggest advice is always communication. Go on walks, walk with each other, go to the park, go to the mall, ask each other questions. You're absolutely right on, you're only going to find out what makes an individual mad if you're asking them. And if you don't ask, you're never going to find out. So that's the biggest key, is communication.
Sister Sally has something she'd like to share.
This week we celebrated 37 years. Thank you. It's been a long, hard struggle. Many, many, many mountains to climb. Fell down many mountains, but we're still together. One of the best things, especially after you have children, is always have a date night. Every week, a date night. You and him, her and you, always. To communicate. The best time is when we're in the car. He can't run. I've got his full attention. He's got my full attention. So never forget the date night. And if I would have known before I married anyone, this is a full-time job.
Yep.
You can leave any job at any time, but not your marriage. It's a full-time job for both. And the minute you slack, you lose. And the best thing about marriage, it is the most awesome thing you could ever want in life. If I had to do over again, I'd probably marry the same man for the same reasons and have the most wonderful son that I could ever ask for and 2 beautiful grandchildren. But guys, put a lot of thought into it before you do it, because it's a full-time job forever. And that's what Yahweh wanted us, forever. And have a happy life.
Thank you. I appreciate the input from both of you. See, I'm at a stage where I'm starting to see the friends that I grew up with get married and having kids, which for me kind of stinks because it's like now I don't have anybody to play basketball with. But that's besides the point. See, I get asked all the time, when are we getting married? Or why haven't you gotten married yet? For me, I think there's 3 things you need to meet before you get married. This is just my personal take on it. And the first one, I'll share these with you. The first one is like a 3-parter, but you get the gist of it. So I feel like you need to meet these 3 things before you marry. Number 1, you need to be emotionally, spiritually, and mentally ready. Because like Sister Sally just shared, it's a full-time job. And the moment you slack, you're probably going to get fired. Number 2, you need to be financially prepared. Now, some might argue with this, but like I said, this is what I believe are wise takes on it. And number 3, of course, is having found the ideal person. Now, for me, personally, I haven't met all 3. I'd like to say I've met 1.5. But maybe soon all 3 will be met. So, probably should start wrapping this up a little bit. But there is a topic we've yet to talk about. It makes people feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? Let's see where. Can't be left out. Starts with an S. I'm going to ask you guys for help here. All right. In a count of 3, we're going to say this word together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I was thinking self-discipline, but yeah, okay. Star Trek does too. Now, here's the thing. If you're not holier than David, smarter than Solomon, stronger than Samson, then you're not exempt from sexual sin, right? Satan's way to break a marriage is usually through sexual temptations. You know, if you ever want to sell anything, just market it with sex appeal, and you'll sell it. So the key to abstaining from committing adultery is really straightforward, and it's you have to respect that person 100%. You see, the moment you lose that respect for that other person is the moment you lose that relationship. And it's not probably a comfortable topic to talk about, but it happens a lot, right? Before marriage, you see, when you have sex before marriage, let's just say, if you have sex before marriage, there's less of an incentive to get married, right? We saw earlier, the statistics went down, and they're going to continue to go down. First, it used to be 91% of people got married, 80%. Next year, it'll probably be 75%. And it'll continue to go down because why marry someone when you can just live with them without getting married, do everything without getting married? And that's not what he desired for us, but it's the case a lot of times. And so my point is, we have to be real. We've all been, or if we haven't been, we're going to be in a situation where sexual temptation arises, right? You take the holiest man, David, the wisest man, Solomon, the strongest man, Samson, they all fell for it. So don't think that you can outsmart that. I think, like I said, the best way to abstain from sexual relationships before marriage is the same way as you would do during marriage, and it's respecting that person 100%. So, in closing, how can dating be done in a righteous way? So step 1, create a Christian Mingle account. For those of you who don't have one, first thing you got to do, I think they have an app now. By the way, if anybody finds me on Christian Mingle, she signed me up for it, so that's not like really me. She thought it'd be funny to sign me up for a Christian Mingle account. So just ignore that. The main points I want you guys to take away from today are these. You're going to attract the type of person that you are, so be the kind of person you want to attract. Learn from your relationships. You know, whether they work out or they don't work out, there's things that you learn in those relationships that you can take out of them. You know, through the years that we've been together, I'd say we've learned a lot about each other. I think most importantly, we've learned a lot about ourselves. We started dating at 15, so in a way, I guess you can say we've kind of dated different people, because, I mean, who we were at 15 is not who we were at 18 or who we are now. So we've definitely grown, and we've definitely learned a lot, because you're at your late teens, early 20s, you're learning a lot about who you are, what you want to do with your life. Your priorities change, to be honest. And most people would advise that you finish school and start your career before you actually commit yourself to a serious relationship. And I would probably advise my kids, if I had kids, I would probably advise them to do the same thing. Be a little bit hypocritical, because I didn't do that. I didn't follow that route, but I I'd say it worked out pretty well for me. Another thing I want you guys to take away from this is selfishness in dating will lead to selfishness in marriage. So for you young people, if you're in a relationship, selfishness in dating will lead to selfishness in marriage. It'll happen. So a couple weeks ago, I hope Marcus, please don't get mad at I'm sharing a story. A couple weeks ago, Marcus and I had just finished pumping iron at the gym. You know what they say? If you don't do the curls, you won't get the girls. So you gotta hit the gym. So, besides the point, we headed back to his dorm, and on his desk, you remember, was a 30-day relationship challenge book. And for a second, I was like, what's? Am I missing something here? But no, it wasn't his desk. It was his buddy's desk. So it wasn't my book, so I put it back down, being the kind of person I am. And then I picked it back up because I was really curious to see what it had to say. And if you ever want to know what a book's main point is, always just go to like the last couple pages. Let's tell you. So for this specific book, it's summarized, and I'm paraphrasing here. The most important thing to understand about a relationship is that it's not about what you can get, but about what you can give. It's not about what you can get out of it, but about what you can give. See, a relationship is not about you, it's about the other person. And so often people don't realize that until it's too late. See, everybody's goal is to have the greatest marriage. But true greatness, like in any event, is not measured by how much you gain, but by how much you're willing to give. And my last point I want you guys to take home with you is work on not letting the small things turn into a big deal. Learn to drop and learn to forgive. Learn to move on. We've heard from Brother Roberto and Sister Sally, and from Ben and Carol from H&R Block and Whole Foods. But my 2 cents is this. If you want a relationship to work out, you should follow the 2 principles that Yeshua applies to his relationship with his bride. And that is to serve and to forgive. So with that, there's all I've got to say. I do want to say one thing. I want you guys to help me congratulate Art and Alina on 5 years today. Thank you.